Hi again, Tom Bertucci, TMB Tech. This is part 2 of my video series on Apple's WWDC. It's been a few days. Sorry about the delay. But I want to talk about, in the second video, I want to talk about the more technical developer side of WWDC. Because, WWDC is a developer conference by Apple for Apple developers. A lot of buzz around the consumer side, which is why I got the consumer part out first, because that's going to be the one more sensitive to the most recent news cycle. The news cycle's over. Anybody who wants to watch this video probably wants to know about the more developer-centric pieces. And this video is not going to be as long as the other one. This video is going to just be my opinion. I don't have any insider information, just from observing what I saw at the conference, and obviously I can't disclose anything that's under the NDA, the developer NDA, but I feel that I can talk about anything which has already been disclosed publicly by other people. So I'm going to just focus on the things, hitting the high points of the things that I thought were the most significant in terms of what might be coming in the future for Apple. Because I believe the developer activities, the technical steps they're taking are an early indication of what might be coming down the line from a consumer standpoint for Apple. So I'm going to go in somewhat of an order, leave the best for last, I think, and if you want to hear that, you'll have to wait till the end. How's that for a teaser? iPadOS. First thing I'm going to talk about is iPadOS. And is it significant? Is it not? I think it is, only from the standpoint is they're actually making a statement that iPad matters. They have this issue about Apple TV and iPad, and what matters most? Is it the desktop? Is it the mobile? And so they're basically saying, you know what? Yeah, tablets do matter, and I think they feel like that's the evolution of the work surface type devices. The devices where you actually create content as opposed to just consume content. Originally, tablet devices were just content consumers. But I believe they're saying, no, you can add input devices like pencils and like keyboards and mice. And, you can make them workstation class devices eventually. I think that's what's going to happen. And is it the future of the desktop or the future evolution of the laptop? I don't know. I don't really care. But iPadOS is a way for them to have a mobile device based on iOS. I don't even know if they truly fork the code. They probably just have a different build. But a device based on iOS, which is clearly where I think they want their future to be, because they have more infrastructure set up for monetization on iOS. I really believe that's the key issue here, is monetization, the ability to monetize. That's where they want things to go. And I really believe the desktop will be around as long as it needs to be in its current form. Laptops will be around as long as they need to be in their current form. But if they can get them into a form, they can more easily control the monetization of the ecosystem, which I believe is iOS based. That's where they're going to go. So that's why iPadOS is significant, I believe, because that's where it's going. And iPad apps on the Mac are just one baby step in that direction. Pretty soon it'll be Mac apps on the iPad, but in a different way. Anyway, so stay tuned for that. AR, I talked about that in the first video. ARKit, RealityKit, Reality Creator Studio, all these things make it much easier for developers to create AR content, and I think it's great. I think a lot of people are going to love it. I think you'll be able to make some really cool demos. Is it going to move the needle? I'm not sure. At least not anytime in the near term. I don't believe it will. But very cool technology. They have incredible technology. And the developers, the environment for developers is so much better than it used to be. Years ago, just managing entitlements and if your cert expired, oh my God, what a pain in the rear it was to upload a new cert and to get those entitlements up to speed, just so you could actually develop code, just so you could build. Oh, if you wanted to hook your own device up to it, oh my God, Now it's like, oh, you plug in a device, you want to use it, push a button. Maybe you have to enter your Apple ID credentials. But other than that, it's pretty darn seamless, and it's excellent. They've done a great job. And you know why? They have to. If you look at Android Studio and you look at what Google's doing, they have to make it easy. And that's what I think they're doing. These things are are coming together. So other things that were announced in no particular order, SwiftNIO, all the things having to do with Swift being open source and being available on GitHub and for easy integration, running Swift on Linux, those things portend the future because they really want to just bring more people into the Swift family, get people used to using Swift who aren't necessarily writing Swift code for Apple devices, but eventually they want you to be. But if you know the language, then it's more likely that you're going to jump. So I believe that's the reason they're doing all the open source stuff, just to get people indoctrinated into the language of Swift without necessarily forcing them to use an Apple device or the Apple ecosystem initially. They're pushing, and the reason they're doing, the next one I'll talk about is Swift DSLs, domain-specific languages. They have the ability now with Swift to embed other languages in Swift code. HTML, JavaScript, whatever you want to put. They don't have DSLs for everything, but they're going to, so that they're first-class citizen code right inside Swift code. So you can create software with this code in it. And that's clearly an attempt to get people who are familiar with that code using Swift so they can bring their knowledge with them. So all of these things tend to be moving in the same direction. I think I mentioned SwiftNIO, I'm not sure, but that's basically a server platform which can run on Linux and other platforms. It's open source, available on GitHub. I think if you go to swift.org, you can find all this stuff. And another attempt to get people using Swift, because I believe they think that Swift, they're clearly treating Swift like it's bigger than just Apple. And I believe that's how they feel, and eventually they want it to take over the world. Will it? I have no idea. But they're making a run, I think, for it. And with GitHub integration and making things as open source as possible, I think they're going to give it a shot. That brings me to the last topic. Like I said, it's going to be a much shorter video. To me, the most significant announcement at WWDC for 2019 was not any consumer stuff, was not the Mac Pro, was not iPadOS, nothing else. It was something which probably didn't get a lot of press, and it's called SwiftUI. And what SwiftUI is a framework for writing UIs in Swift that did not exist before. Let me explain a little bit about that. In the past, what you had to do, and like right now, if you don't have the current build of Xcode, if you want to write a UI, you had a couple choices. You could write it completely in code, writing code using the low-level properties and methods of the classes that are available to you, right down there in the dirty, and you could do whatever you wanted to as long as you knew the details about those classes. So that was one way to write code, which very few people did actually, at least exclusively. And the other way was you would use Interface Builder, which is a graphical UI builder, very similar to what other people use. And you could just draw boxes and lines, and you could construct your UI almost completely that way. Usually you ended up having to have a little bit of both, because it was easy sometimes just to set the background color in code versus what you're doing, because you want to do it programmatically. You want to do it while things were changing. But the thing was, it was either or, and when you generated a UI element with Interface Builder, the code was done under the covers. You didn't really see it; just happened. And when you wrote code in Swift to adjust the UI, you didn't see it till you actually built and ran your project. So nothing was interactive. It was like, I'm over here, I'm over there. I got to build and run, build and run, build and run to see what's going on. And so Apple has come up with this new. This is what people do. They look around, they see what's going on, and they glean the best of it, and they put it in their own products. And I don't have a problem with that. I would do it too. And if I didn't know about certain things out there, I might think this was new and revolutionary, but it's not. I happen to be very familiar, or getting familiar with what Google's doing, more familiar with them over the past few months. And Google has been promoting this environment called Flutter, which is used with Android Studio, and a new language called Dart, which is cross-platform, truly cross-platform, not cross-platform in the sense that Apple says it. And with that, you can write code that can run on an Android device or an iOS device with the proper massaging. I mean, I don't mean massaging the code, I mean just getting the environments to integrate together. Once you've integrated the environments, then there is no changes to your code. You just write the code once and you can target it at either device, which is sort of the holy grail, which I think every developer wants as long as they're okay with that code and with using that environment and that IDE. And in that environment, in the Flutter/Dart environment, there is a way to write UI code, to create a UI which is suspiciously similar to what SwiftUI now offers to iOS developers. Essentially what you do is you have high-level widgets, if you will, and you write your code. And what's cool about SwiftUI is you've got two windows. On the left you've got code, on the right you have a canvas, right? And you can go back and forth for either one, and you can write code and you can say I want a widget and I want it to be a canvas, and it opens up and has this type of a title and it looks like that. And as soon as you're writing it on the left side, it's appearing on the right side. You can see it appearing. And vice versa. You can go over to the other side and you can say, no, I want this to move like that and I want it to look like that. You're graphically adjusting and the code changes on the code side. And this is interactive. And you do have to hit a couple buttons now and then depending on how you want to preview this. But you have a lot of control over how it's previewed. It can be previewed in different ways. You can say, well, I want my UI device to be big, be small, what have you, and you can specify that in code. It's very, very cool. It's very interactive. It should accelerate the development of high-quality iOS applications, and it should allow people to more rapidly iterate on the apps they want to do with less low-level knowledge. So I think it's very, very cool. It's very, very similar to what I've seen in the Dart camp. So I see these efforts as converging. And who will get there first? Who will get there best? I don't know, but I believe that SwiftUI is a big bet that Apple's placing. Who knows whether it will actually pay off or not, but it's a big bet, and it is the most significant thing that came out of WWDC 2019, because I believe it's going to have potentially much higher impact than anything else to Apple's bottom line. So that's it for this video. I hope you enjoyed it. If you did, please give me a thumbs up or give me some comments, and I'll see you on the next one.